The Accidental Entrepreneur is produced by Beinhacker Law and brought to you through our affiliate relationships with the following sponsors. One of One Productions, the New Jersey-based podcast studio that produces and edits both audio and video podcasts. They sell equipment for the average podcaster and have even created a guesting kit exclusively for our listeners. North Authentic, the conscious hair care marketplace offering the cleanest brands from around the world. The Healthy Place, the e-commerce site with thousands of supplements to help you live a healthier life, along with natural solutions for chronic pain, stress, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and much, much more. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
Right. It's more like the History Channel. So as much as we're selling things, we're trying to, offer in a way that's educational. People learn about these coins. It's not like just some infomercial guy trying to jam some product down your. So buy my mom.
Right. Of course.
It's hey, this coin this is why I think it's cool. This coin was, there's history to it. There's rarity. We talk about a lot of the coins. We sell gold coins that are from the early 20th century. There's a period that we call the Renaissance of American coinage. So in the early 20th century, Theodore Roosevelt became president. He thought our coins were ugly. He was a guy who was into art. He collected coins, but he was into art besides his famous, love of nature and the national parks and everything.
Right.
And he thought our coins were ugly. So he actually wrote a letter to the Secretary of Treasury, and we show this letter a lot, and we read the letter. And he writes this letter and says, "Our current coinage is of hideous atrociousness." And it's a great story, and it's interesting. And then we're showing the letter, and we're showing these coins, and he worked with Augustus St. Gaudens, and he worked with all these people who were famous artists of the day. Not in the coin world, but just artists. You go to the Met, you'll see St. Gaudens, statues that he did, and there's a national park where his, studio was up in Vermont. So Roosevelt went and got these artists who were the best artists of the day to create these coins. So
the information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Jack McNamara. I've been collecting coins for over 40 years, as long as I can remember. And I'm a co-founder of Rare Collectibles TV, and I'm here to share my experience in turning my hobby, something I love doing for my whole life, into my profession.
Okay, and welcome to another episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. For those of you listening out there on whatever platform you're listening on, be sure to leave us a nice review, as well as if you're watching our discussion on YouTube, and you're going to meet Jack in a minute, be sure to subscribe to the channel to support us and hit that like button. So I have a unique guest on today. We're going to talk a little bit about collectibles and some very interesting stuff. And Jack's going to explain some things to me in a bit. But Jack is a, what's the word, Jack? There's a word for coin for stamp collectors. So what's the word for coin collectors?
I am a numismatist. So numismatics is the study of rare coins and money.
So that's why it says you're a member of the Professional Numismatists Guild.
Correct.
And a life member of the American Numismatic Association.
Correct.
Very good. So we all learned a big vocabulary SAT word today.
They are. When people used to ask me what I do, I used to say I'm a numismatist. And then after a while, I felt a little ostentatious having to explain that to everyone. Like I was trying to show off. So I usually just say I'm a coin dealer.
I think if you told me you were a numismatist, I would think you're some sort of a magician.
Right. Or maybe you think I'm like a doctor. People may think I'm.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate Andrea Pass for introducing us. And why don't you go back and we'll talk about your story and how you got into coin collecting. And I think it's as I was saying off the mic, an interesting discussion about people out there who have hobbies, especially if they're younger, that it could become a career for them,
Right. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Mitch. I appreciate you bringing me on. But yeah, I grew up as a kid in New Jersey, as you did. I grew up in North Jersey.
Okay.
And my grandfather had collected coins for his whole life. His grandfather actually was the one who got him into collecting coins.
Okay.
So ever since I was a little kid, I'd get coins from my grandfather for birthdays and Christmas and things. And I started the same way a lot of people started. I had these little albums. When I was a kid, it was old pennies, but a lot of the newer generation started with state quarters with these albums.
I remember when those were coming out.
Right. And it's a great way to start because you don't need a lot of money. You can go through, as a kid, I'd go through my parents' change and I'd always look forward to holidays, getting coins from my grandfather. And we'd go over to my grandparents' house, me and my brother, and we had our little books. And my grandfather actually had like a bin of the old wheat pennies, the old pennies that had the wheat on the back.
Yeah.
And we would play bingo. And he would like go through and call out that, I have a 1941 D. Oh, I need that one for my book. So it was a lot, this fun kind of connection I had with my grandfather. And it was something that, I learned about history and I learned about supply and demand and about different countries. I'd always look for coins, if somebody got a coin in their change or traveled, like I was always looking for these foreign coins. And there's a lot as a kid you can learn about, from coins. So it was something that was a lot of fun and something I had this connection with my grandfather, and he had a connection with his grandfather, who I later found out, I don't know if my grandfather even realized this, but my great grandfather actually had advertised coins for sale and dealt coins in the 1880s. So
like he was a dealer.
Yeah. There's ads I found from 1887 in the American Journal of Numismatics, which was a pretty new publication then. And there's probably only a couple dozen dealers in the country, but he was in New York City advertising coins for sale.
If you watch, there's this new show that my wife and I got into called The Gilded Age on HBO. It takes place in New York City in the 1880s. People are like building their homes. Maybe your great grandfather will show up.
Right.
Like an ad they'll see something about coin collectors. This is right in that period of time.
So I'll have to check that out.
Right. That's pretty funny. But I think, I remember growing up, we would get those books, and I did it with my son too, because when the state quarters came out, we were older. Right. And, every time there was some change, he would be like, "Oh, Dad, which one do you, oh, no, I already have that one. I'm looking for Hawaii. Did you find, and it's a fun hobby. I also did stamps when I was younger, but that was really because I guess my mom or my grandfather did it and left it to me, but I never really got it. I just remember the book was lighter. The coin book was too heavy for me. So, but coin collecting is a cool thing. So, so go on with the story.
But yeah, and those state quarter books are great. I mean, you're learning about history, because they put those out in order of when the states joined the union.
Right.
But yeah, so then once I had little jobs, I'd ride my bike. I'd ride to Tenafly, Diversified Coin and Stamp, and Tenafly, and there was another one in Closter. I'd ride my little bike and buy coins. And I'm kind of one of these guys too. You find this with a lot of collectors. You kind of have this collecting bug or gene where, for a while it was more baseball cards for me for a little while, which my grandfather kind of frowned. It was like, "Oh, that's nice, but stick with the coins, kid," and it just became this lifelong thing. And after college, I didn't really think of it as something I could make a career, because at the time I still kind of, just saw these little coin stores with one or two guys working there. I didn't realize that there was kind of more to it than this.
Yeah, that's what was in my neighborhood. You would just some guy, and you figured he just buys and sells coins for big.
Right, and he's usually cranky because everybody comes in and thinks their penny is worth $1 million, and it's worth a penny.
Right. Yeah.
But after college, I did some other things. I worked with at Prudential with life insurance, and I worked at Equitable, AXA with 401k plans.
I think it's actually Equitable again.
Is it Equitable again?
And they changed back. I think the French company spun them off, and it became and it's funny. People were like telling me, because I grew up in the insurance business too. My father was in the business.
Okay.
And people were like, oh, there's this, they changed their name to this new company, Equitable. I go, it's not a new company.
A new company that's like 100 and something years old.
Right. Exactly.
Right. But but I was doing these things, and it wasn't anything I had a passion for. I was bored. It was just a job, and I started thinking like, what can I do that I can enjoy? And
you were still collecting at that point, just
like off and on. I mean, in high school and college, and this is a pretty common trajectory. A lot of people, they collect as a kid, and then you kind of get busy with high school sports and life and your studies and things. And I'm a music geek too, so I played in bands for a little, and I just guess that I didn't have the resume to be a rock star, as much as I wanted to, but you have other interests. But it always was something that I enjoyed doing, and I looked forward to getting those things from my grandfather on holidays and things, and talking to him about it. And I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can turn this hobby into a career. And I started kind of getting a little more serious about it. My wife would laugh at me. Like, I'd come home from work and I'd be reading like coin magazines and coin books, and I'd be laughing. She's like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, oh, this funny coin story. And she's like, you're a geek.
Well, what did she think, Jack? You were going to go out and buy a little shop and have your case there, and people walk in and they with their little monocle and look at
I'm not sure what she thought. I'm not sure what I thought. I kind of started, I started trying to do it a little more kind of on the side. Okay. And I had a friend who knew someone who had a collection that they wanted to sell. Okay. So I did this little deal where I took the coins on consignment, and I went to a coin show and I sold them. And and that kind of got me a little bit started. I started learning a little more about, it's easy as a collector to be buying, but then, selling it is a whole nother animal, So I kind of started with that. I put together like a little price list and little descriptions. And that kind of was enough for me to get my foot in the door at Stax, which is Stax is America's
the auction house in New York, right?
Yeah, they're America's oldest, auction house coin company. They're a family business, started in the 30s. They've been there forever. It was kind of like, for me, as kind of at the level I was at the time, it was like, right. So, but I have I guess my mom's cousin who worked for Sotheby's, who knew Larry Stack and kind of was able to make this introduction, said, look, I don't know if they need help, but, I'll at least give them your name and you can call him. And I was like relentless. I called Larry Stack like once a week for like months. And finally he said, why don't you come in? And, I ended up working there for 7 years. And I learned a ton about coins, because now I'm seeing a whole nother level of things. I'm not seeing the state quarters and pennies that I was putting in my book as a kid. I'm seeing, $1 million coins. I'm seeing these rare coins that as a kid with my grandfather, I'd look in the book and only imagine, what these things were like. And now I'm seeing them in person. And
this company only dealt in coins. They didn't deal with any other collectibles.
Just coin, paper money, metals, like related, but other, stamps or anything else.
Got it. Okay.
Coins. So it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. I learned a lot about coins, and and at one point, it was kind of a weird, I wasn't really looking, I ended up, Rare Collectibles TV. We're in Southern California. As you can see in the name, TV is right in the name. We sell coins on TV. Yeah. I had no aspirations to be in California. I had no aspirations to be on TV. I was kind of laughing when I see the name of your podcast, Accidental Entrepreneur, because this was a real accident. If you named, 50 cities to move to, LA would probably be like at the bottom of my list, but, I saw this ad for a company who was selling coins on TV looking for a buyer. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And
this is while you were working for Stax?
This is when I was at Stax. Yeah. And I interviewed with them, and they offered me a position as their buyer. And it was I ended up taking it, kind of was an offer that made sense. It gave me more responsibility. I can kind of learn more about it's a very different segment of the business, because in a coin store, you're generally kind of just there waiting for whatever comes in. Somebody, oh, my grandfather left me these coins, I want to sell them. Right. And it's kind of whatever happens is, and, with a company like Stacks, you're, in New York City. So it's a very busy store. People are coming in, selling things all day. People are buying things too. People are consigning to auction because they know this name in the auction business. But now I'm in a role where it's about marketing and selling, getting enough of a product to be able to offer it on TV. And it's a very different role. So I moved out to California in 2010.
Right.
And I start working for this company, and I was there for a few years, and there I met who now are my two partners. So I have. Got
it. So you didn't start Rare Collectibles TV. You actually went to work for them.
Well, no, it was a different company that I went to work for.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I've met the co-founders of Rare Collectibles TV through this prior company. So that one of them had been
but that company was in LA?
That company was in LA, right?
Okay, so let me follow this through because I'm married too. So you're working at Prudential or Equitable, right? You leave what your wife probably perceived as a stable job. I'm not suggesting that it was or that I have that perception, but okay. So you leave that to go to work for Stacks in New York, which probably was a pay cut, but maybe it was the same. Okay. And then
slight pay cut, not too bad though.
Okay. So you were able to, so you go over there and then you find this opportunity and you go to your wife and said, not only did I leave my job and I'm working in the coin business, we're moving to LA.
Yeah, that was a big, it was a big unknown. But we had
unknown. Your wife's a saint,
right? No, she is, and it gets worse actually. Because so we had two little kids at the time. My kids at the time were like 4 and like 6 months old,
right?
And part of the reason was because my wife was working in the city, and we had to have childcare, and she really wanted to be home when the kids were little with them, and this move to LA would afford her the ability to stay home with the kids. So that was part of the decision. But when I first came out, I actually was commuting back and forth for 6 months. So she's home with 2 little kids. And it was the one winter where we had like 4 blizzards. So every
back
time,
and forth coast to coast.
Yeah. So I'm coming to California and she's home with 2 little kids. And it happened to be the one year where we got like 18 inches of snow, like every 3 weeks.
Yeah. I think it always happened. Late 90s or so. We got like 17 major storms, right?
This was in 2010, the winter of 2010.
Oh, okay. Well, there was a time before that was even worse, but yeah, we had a lot of storms those years. Yeah.
So she's stuck at home like with 18 inches of snow, and I'm always out here like, yeah, it's 72 degrees today. She's in a blizzard with.
Oh, I see. For 6 months, she stayed in New Jersey.
Yeah,
you're out there. Yeah, oh man, you couldn't have been. You're in the doghouse like every.
Yeah. So, but eventually we moved out then in 2011. And then, so in 2014, we founded Rare Collectibles TV. So I was out here a few years first, then we started Rare Collectibles TV. So, and it was.
Did you meet these guys? Did you meet them through the job you had?
Met them through the other job, right? So the first show. So it was a perfect fit though, because my one partner, his background is media and marketing.
Okay.
Then there's me, who my background is mainly in buying coins. And then my other partner, who also buys coins, but he, had kind of made a name for himself. He had written several books. His name's Rick Tamaska. So when you see our show on TV, you might see Rick's U.S. Coin Show. So Rick is a pretty well-known numismatist. He had written books on Franklin halves and Kennedy halves and proof coins and things. So, we're both, coin experts, but he's, a little older than me and had been around for a while, kind of writing books. And he had been kind of a guest host on the show and the prior company that I worked for. So I met
a TV company too.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
So now with Rare Collectibles TV, we're selling, TV, like I said, is in the name. So we're selling on TV, but we've grown it, through TV kind of is where people find us and where we find clients, but we have a very kind of, one-on-one service that we do
for select clientele, serious. buyers and sellers. So, so RCTV buys spots on or does shows for HSN, home, the other shopping networks, things like that, or did you have? How did you do? You didn't have a studio and a cable. You weren't Channel 4. So, How do you promote that as a TV station?
Right. Well, now we do have our own studio.
Yeah, now it's easier, right?
Right. Yeah. Now it's all in-house. In the very beginning, we did kind of rent studios but we've always produced our own content.
Okay.
So we were on, what are traditionally kind of called live shopping channels.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, we did a little bit of it live, but we now pre-tape everything because we can put in all of this great B-roll. If we're talking about a Kennedy half, we can show a clip of Kennedy, making a speech. We can show, the minting process. We can show all this great information.
So it's much more polished than it was.
Right. It's much more polished, much more informative because, look, I'm trying to share my love of collecting with people. And, if they just see me talking about it, well, that's great. But, we try and make it much more informative, much more like
visual.
Right. It's more like the History Channel. So as much as we're selling things, we're trying to, offer in a way that's educational. People learn about these coins. It's not like just some infomercial guy trying to jam some product down here. So buy my mom.
Right. Of course.
It's, hey, this coin this is why I think it's cool. This coin was, there's history to it. There's rarity. We talk about a lot of the coins, we sell gold coins that are from the early 20th century. There's a period that we call the Renaissance of American coinage. So in the early 20th century, Theodore Roosevelt became president. He thought our coins were ugly. He was a guy who was into art. He collected coins, but he was into art besides his famous, love of nature and the national parks and everything.
Right.
And he thought our coins were ugly. So he actually wrote a letter to the Secretary of Treasury. And we show this letter a lot and we read the letter. And he writes this letter and says, our current coinage is of hideous atrociousness. And it's a great story and it's interesting. And then, we're showing the letter and we're showing these coins. And he worked with Augustus St. Gaudens and he worked with all these people who were famous artists of the day, not in the coin world, but just artists. You go to the Met, you'll see St. Gaudens, statues that he did. And there's a national park where his, studio was up in Vermont. So Roosevelt went and got these artists who were the best artists of the day to create these coins. So it's stories like this so
that's the coins we have today, or not really?
No, but a lot of those designs that we're using have been repurposed. Like the Mint makes gold coins today that are called a gold eagle, but they use the same design that was used on the $20 gold piece back then. So some of these designs are so popular that they kind of reuse them on new coins. But I guess my point is when we're telling these stories, instead of me just kind of like standing there and you're watching me and, whatever, I don't think I'm the ugliest guy in the world, but I don't think anybody wants to sit here staring at me all day long. But, we can show this letter, we can show footage of, pictures of Roosevelt. We can, and it makes it, more like a documentary that you're watching.
Right. Sure. Well, ironically, that's probably a better sales technique anyway, because I think especially nowadays, the infomercial, shoving it down people's throat, being a smooth salesperson, whatever, people just see through it. And I think that if they're educated and they get more interested in it, I just think it's a more sticky relationship. They're more likely to remember it, or they see it in another place and they're like, wait, I saw that coin and they remember stuff. So I think it's probably a better sales technique anyway.
Right. And for me, I'm not a natural sales guy. Like I'm a guy who loves coins. So for me, it's more natural too. It's, I'm not a hard sale guy. Like that's just not who I am.
I always tell people, if you're not comfortable doing it that way, then it's not going to be effective.
Right.
Because you won't, you're not going to enjoy it.
And it would come across, I think, people would see right through it in a second.
Through you. Yeah. Right through you.
So that's kind of what we do. So we're on these live shopping channels.
So you provide them the content and then they air the show because it's all done, and then they can call the operators and order whatever. You're not taking calls, obviously.
I'm not personally, but they're, again, it's all self-contained. So we have our own, call center here. We have a studio here where they're editing, where we're filming, where they're editing. We have an incredible photography team. Our photographers, I think, are the best. And, the world is changing, though. Like, I mean, we're on the live TV. We're also on infomercials. Like, you'll see our programming on, most weekends we're on CNBC, we're on Bloomberg, we're on Fox Business.
Sure.
And those are different in those are kind of blocks that are, we might be on for an hour or something, where these other blocks on DirecTV, Dish, Time Warner, kind of all the different cable providers, TV providers, we might be on for, 4 hours a night, where, it's not all one program. It'll be
right.
A half hour I'm talking about this $20 gold coin, a half hour I'm talking about a silver eagle, or Rick actually, or there's another guy, James too. One of us is on there talking. So it's not like a 4-hour show, but it's 4 hours of our content talking about different coins, because there's different budgets, different people like different things.
And you're streaming through the site too?
And it's streaming on the website. Yeah. rarecollectiblestv.com.
Right.
And that's where the world is changing a lot too. Of course, TV, I mean, people are, cord cutting. TV is a different animal. When we started Rare Collectibles TV, it was mainly a front end business. It was mainly TV was our primary place we're selling. We didn't really do much on the back end. Now we have a sales team of 20 or 30 people that are then, helping these clients. They buy something on TV and then they say, you know what, I want to collect this series. Do you have other dates? Do you have other things? So we can, so we now have a group we call our private advisory coin team, which will probably change to our private advisory collectibles team soon. But,
expand your line.
Right. Because, I mean, when we started the company, we named it Rare Collectibles TV. And even though, me and Rick were coin experts, the kind of bigger idea was at someday, if we can make this work in coins, we can kind of expand into other categories because, one, it grows the business, but two, I mean, a lot of collectors, most collectors I know, like I said, it's like a bug, it's like a gene, like you collect stuff. And I think almost everyone collects something, whether they realize it or not. It's like, it's so many people you say, oh, what do you collect? Oh, I don't collect anything. And then you find out they have,
you're right.
They have 4 watches.
Then you walk into their basement, they got 16 beer cans of some.
Right.
My
or
son's like that. He collects. I go to his apartment. He's got Matchbox cars in the packages all over the wall. I said, what do you have? I collect them, Dad. And he collect the beer cans and people just collect. It's a human. Right. I think it's a human nature to do that. We're fascinated by things.
Exactly. And I find, like I said, people who say they don't collect and think they don't collect, you go in their garage, they got 4 sets of golf clubs. They got, they got, 5 watches. But
only one wrist.
But most people really collect. You'll find they collect. Like I collect, when I was a kid, I got into baseball cards. I've been collecting, I'm a North Jersey guy. I'm collecting New York Giants football cards with my son, so we started in the last year or so starting to expand. So we now do militaria, which is cool. And I like that category a lot as a coin guy, because there is a lot of crossover. There's a lot of guys who, they like the history of, guys who are collecting coins from the Civil War era. Now they want, can I get a gun or a sword from that period to go with my coin collection?
Right.
So we do a lot of, firearms we can do prior to 1899. So we don't do modern guns. We do, guns that you aren't going to go fire. But we do, edged weapons, swords, daggers, flags are very popular. You get these flags from the Civil War, flags, when it was 48 stars or 46 stars from these earlier eras, helmets, all kinds of neat stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So we brought in an expert named Peter Carlin, who is a great guy who knows a ton about that stuff. It's funny, he's no longer there, but he grew up in New Jersey. Somehow we're all New Jersey guys.
Yeah. Civil War, colonial times. I think that, and some businesses lend themselves better to this, but I think a lot of small business owners, they miss the opportunity to build a database, a client list of people that have done business with you. Like, it's so much easier for you to dig deeper with the relationship with a customer
not everybody wants to collect different things, but a lot of people do. We know that, right? So for you to keep marketing, I think a lot of people, what they do is they do business with people and then they say, oh, now we're coming out with this, and they start marketing and putting it out, and they forget, they don't even have it in a computer anywhere of all these people that they should be keeping in touch with to announce things and, keep them in their world, so to speak, when that's just an easy thing to do. And a lot of people, don't do it, but you went through the trouble to do the show, to have this person actually reach out and buy something from you or sell something to you. And you got the data. So, and I think a lot of business owners, they miss that important, even the podcast. The number one thing people say, you want to build a podcast, build an email list, build a follower list to keep in touch with people. Cause just putting it out on social media, it's 14 million podcasts out there. Everybody's got something to say, nothing special. You're not gonna be Joe Rogan or, Dax Shepard on Spotify. So it's content, but I've been building an email list for years. And I think that's an astute, I think that's for you guys to recognize that early on is what's going to make you and probably keeps making you successful.
Right. And that's where kind of, I got lucky to have this other partner who is from the media world and the marketing world, because I'd be sitting here playing with coins, so he's been a great mentor to me on the business side of things. He's not a coin guy, but he can talk he gets coins. We talk coins. He knows what he's talking about. He's not an expert, but his expertise in that world, and he's a guy who's built several businesses in the marketing world, so in the media world. So I learned a ton from him. That's not my expertise, but I'm learning a lot from him. And like you said, it's content is king these days. So we're creating content, but like you said, along the way, we're building a book of clients who,
because that's the whole point of the content, right? To get them in your funnels. You don't know when they're going to make a purchase or if or whatever. You got to get them in the world, right? You got to get them in the circle.
Right.
I'm sure your partner very much recognizes that.
Right. And, we really focus on the customer, we really focus on our client. We have a 30-day, no questions asked money back guarantee, but you don't know how many times I've, somebody's, later than that is called and there's some, I don't know, issue. Oh, I didn't open the box and it wasn't what I want. No problem. I want everybody who does business with Rare Collectibles TV to just love it. And, I just want it to be convenient, easy. We're the kind of, the Nordstrom or Tiffany or whatever of collectibles. We want it to be easy. We want you to love, doing business with us. I would think though, returns, maybe I'm completely wrong. I would think returns would be rare. Unless the guy doesn't open the box and he realizes that he thought he ordered a buffalo nickel and it's a wheat penny or something like that. What are they going to do? Be disappointed with the coin? Returns are pretty low, especially in our private advisory coin team. The people who are working one-on-one kind of know what they want. Right. And returns are pretty rare. Even on our, what I'd call the front end of the business, people buying on TV, it's pretty low. Usually it's just, like a buyer's remorse, maybe I shouldn't have spent that much money, or my wife found out and got upset that I spent, $3,000 on a coin or whatever.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to get into podcasting? Maybe to market your business for your own enjoyment, or because you have a message you want to get out there. One of One Productions is a New Jersey-based studio just over the George Washington Bridge that caters to the booming business of podcasting. They offer a comfortable atmosphere using the latest technology available to record your podcast. And they are a full-service media company offering both audio and video production services, creating both audio and video podcasts as well as video shorts for business and personal use. Professional audio equipment packages are available through their website for all budgets, and be sure to check out their podcast guesting kit, created specially for our listeners. Care for your health, care for the planet, and look flippin' great doing it. North Authentic is a conscious hair care marketplace offering the cleanest brands from around the world. Their pro stylists curate only the most fabulous non-toxic hair products with better-for-you shampoos, serums, masks, and more that actually give you gorgeous hair without hurting your health or the planet. Hey, you've only got one life, one planet, and one glorious mane. Might as well treat them all as best you can, right? Try a 100% clean hair care routine prescribed just for you using their link in the show notes. If you don't see a big, beautiful difference in how your hair looks and feels, you can tell them they're crazy. Do you battle chronic pain, stress, anxiety, or depression? Well, if you take any supplements or you're interested in natural alternatives, you need to know about findyourhealthyplace.com. Find Your Healthy Place has thousands of supplements to help you live a better quality of life, as well as natural solutions for chronic pain, stress, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and much, much more. Need guidance? Use their live chat feature and talk to a wellness consultant right on their website. And be sure to use our coupon code TAE Podcast for all your purchases to get the best prices at findyourhealthyplace.com. Follow their links in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show.
So usually it's something like that. And like I said, coins, even though, so today coins are graded by third-party companies. So there's a few of them out there, but the two that are widely recognized are Ngc and Pcgs. So these are companies, they don't buy or sell coins. They just authenticate them and certify them and grade them. They put a rating on them. And they put
don't
them
price them?
They don't price them. Well, they do have price guides online, but their main thing is just, this coin is in mint state 65 condition, and it's a real coin. Before that, when
they're grading like not the issue of the coin, the actual coin.
Actual coin. I wish I had one here on my desk. Let's see if I have. Sorry, I'm off.
No, that's good.
That's bad.
I like. Let's do it now. I like doing it.
Perfect
as we go. Right.
I actually have something in my drawer. So here's an example of a coin that was. Oh,
it's because of your background. Put it in front of your face. There you go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect.
So this coin was certified by Ngc, which is one of the grading companies, and it's in a tamper-proof holder, so nobody can switch the coin out. So in the old days, when I was a kid, coins were today we call it raw, but not certified like this. And I might look at a coin and say this coin is uncirculated condition, and you might look at the coin and say, I would call that about uncirculated condition. And in one grade, it might be a $500 coin. Another grade might be a $300 coin. So there was no kind of consistency. Even people who were honest might have a differing opinion. And of course, as you'd imagine, this could lead to people not being so honest, and they clean coins or
easy to throw. Right.
Easy to,
yeah.
So most of the coins we sell are certified by one of these two companies who put it in this holder, which is then tamper-proof. You have to break it to the holder to get the coin out.
So they put in the little tag, which is like a certificate of authenticity.
Exactly.
And then they seal it up and everything.
Exactly. And where I was going with this, though, is even two coins that have the exact same grade, there still is some subjectivity to this. This is still humans who grade these coins, and they're looking at different things. So they're looking at, how many marks there are on a coin, but they also are looking at kind of how the coin was made, the strike, meaning, when they strike a coin, there's these two dies that come together, and it's a press, like a printing press almost, strikes the coin. Some coins, even a new coin, it wasn't struck with enough pressure, or the way the design has these kind of high points on either side where you don't get all the detail. So it might still be lacking some detail. Or the luster, which is the way the light reflects off it. You can have something that's lackluster. It's not super reflective, even though it's new. First one that's more reflective. So you can have two coins in the same grade. And, I had a guy return a coin because he said, for an MS-66, I think this coin has too many marks.
This is the buyer.
Right? So I say, send it back and I'll pick you a better coin. And even though, it's a high grade coin, MS-66, very high grade. 70 is the highest grade that a coin can get.
Oh, that's the way it works?
Perfect coin. So for modern recent issues, you can have perfect 70 coins. For older coins before the 70s, say, there's no such thing as a coin graded a perfect grade.
Because it's just, Now you get, so if somebody comes in and sells coins or a whole mess of coins, you then send them out to this company and then they authenticate and put them in the containers. Is that
right? Even if it's worthwhile, you're not going to do a cheap coin because the cost of grading is not right. But yeah, in a basic sense, yeah, that's. But like I said, there's still subjectivity. So I had a guy return a coin because he says, "Oh, as a mark, I don't like it." But there's still all these components. He sent this coin back, and I had like 6 other coins. I said, "Man, that's the coin I would have picked for myself. That one's beautiful because it had this really flashy luster."
The one that he was sending back.
But he's looking at a mark kind of in the middle of the body on Miss Liberty. But I picked a different one that wasn't as flashy luster wise, but it had less marks, and he loved the coin. Got it. So even though there's these grading standards that really make it a lot more, kind of lets you sleep at night. You don't have to take my word that the coin is this grade. There's this third party that's authenticated. It's real. It's this grade. There still is a little subjectivity. So sometimes we get returns, and it's not even returns, exchanges for a reason like that. Because I always tell somebody like, look, I think this coin is absolutely, perfect for the grade. I have no problem with it. But I don't want you to ever have something where, if there's this little spot or mark or something that's bothering you, I don't want you to be, every time you look at that coin, you think, oh man, I wish I didn't buy this. Like, I want you to look at that coin and always be like, man, Jack McNamara and those guys at Rare Collectibles TV, like
they're the best.
They always will take care of me. And if I don't like something, they'll fix it. And, like I said, it doesn't happen often, but we really pride ourselves on just, the best quality coins. I mean, even coins that grade, MS63, like another example, I have coins, certain coins, they come with kind of splotchy toning. So an old silver coin, like your silverware at home, will tarnish on coins. We call it toning. Sometimes you get really pretty blues and pinks, and coins will bring a fortune because people love that. You can't replicate it. Right. But sometimes you get toning that's brown and streaky and splotchy, but it still technically might be a high grade coin. So we make sure we're not just sending you a coin that just because it reaches that grade level technically, we make sure we look at the coins and we're giving you coins that we think have what we call eye appeal. Coins that look really nice for that given grade. What can
you tell me some stories about some crazy stuff you've seen over the years come through, whether it's at Stacks or Rare Collectibles?
Yeah, we've had some really wild coins. So one coin that we placed with a client is called an ultra high relief St. Gaudens. So again, back to this era when Roosevelt tapped St. Gaudens to redesign our coins. They start with the biggest coin, which is the $20 gold piece, called a double eagle.
Got it. So there was a gold piece for $20 in those days.
Right. And it's called a double eagle. People think there's 2 eagles, but it's because when the Mint first started making coins, the biggest coin was a $10 coin, and they nicknamed that coin the eagle. So when they started to get a $20 coin, they call it double eagle.
Right.
But so when Roosevelt gets St. Gaudens to redesign the coins, first off, St. Gaudens at first didn't want to do it because he had a bad experience with the Mint because he made a medal for them and they just redesigned the reverse of it without telling him. And he was like, I want nothing to do with the Mint. Like he was not happy. But Roosevelt, convinced him, like they had this kind of vision for our coins. And they were inspired by, there was ancient coins that had what they call a high relief, meaning the design is really, really raised from the background of the coin. So they were trying to make these coins kind of really works of art. So they start with this $20 coin, and St. Gaudens designs this coin, has this woman that's Liberty walking off of the coin, striding towards the viewer, because our coins traditionally before that had kind of a woman's head representing Liberty. And even though it was representing Liberty, it's a very kind of European design. Like, all the coins at the time had, the King of England, the King of Spain. So it had the same kind of style. This was like a whole stylistic change. Like they're trying to make a work of art. But when they're working on this idea to make this work of art, it's also still got to be a coin. It's got to be able to work in the banking system.
Right.
So they make these coins in this ultra high relief where it's really raised. And, these coins, they don't stack. when they strike a coin, in that press where the coin strikes, they had to strike these coins like a dozen times to get this relief to come out like this. So the very, very earliest ones they called ultra high relief. It had this really high relief. They lowered it a little and made a small amount of coins for circulation in a high relief. And eventually they had to lower it to a much more flat relief. But the very first ones in this ultra high relief, they only made about a dozen or so, or 16 or something. So
it must be very valuable.
Incredibly rare, incredibly valuable. We sold one to a client in a grade of AU 58. Now, anything 60 or higher is uncirculated. So this coin had a little bit of wear. For this coin, which never really circulated, this is actually the lowest graded one. But part of the kind of myth about this, and there's no way to prove this, but we believe it could very well be, there is a coin that was known that Roosevelt had sent to St. Gaudens to inspect, and then St. Gaudens gave it back and Roosevelt had it in his drawer. So the theory is that possibly the reason this coin has this little bit of wear on it is because it very well could have been this coin.
His coin.
Roosevelt and St. Gaudens coin. So that coin we placed with a client, and that was the first 7-figure coin that we sold. So that's a rare, important
coin. 7 figures is in excess of $1 million.
Yes. Yeah. So that was pretty exciting. It's funny. I actually had this coin when I was at Stax. Stax had this coin and needed me to show it to someone. And I stopped at home and I have a picture of my son when he's 2 years old holding this coin.
Oh, yeah.
Which my wife thought I was nuts.
History, right?
Yeah. But it's a piece of our history. I mean, these are things that you'd find in the Smithsonian. We do a lot of coins off. There's a shipwreck that went down in 1857 called the SS Central America. They were bringing gold from the gold rush from California to the banking centers in the Northeast, and a hurricane sinks this ship, and it had a huge impact on the economy. There was actually
because we had a gold standard in those days, right? Everything.
Yeah, I mean, our money was gold. It wasn't like today where they're just printing, whatever. Like, that was our money.
Did we even have any paper money then? Just a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah, to a degree, but not like today. But
right.
At that point, it was actually still the banks were issuing their own money. It wasn't federally regulated.
Right. It wasn't. a national bank. Yeah. So what's the biggest, the highest coin we have now? Like is it $1?
For circulation, it's $1.
There's still $1 coin?
Yeah, for circulation. Yeah. But there are bigger coins that the mint makes for collectors or for people who want to
can't spend them. Nobody's going to.
You could. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, you have a gold eagle that's an ounce of gold that has a $50 face value, but I wouldn't recommend spending an ounce of gold for $50.
Right. So you could. I mean, you could go into a store and give them a $50 coin and they give you paper.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah, you could.
No.
Part of that is because for whatever reason, collectors really, they want a coin. And if it doesn't have a denomination, if it's not legal tender, then it's a metal or a token.
Got it.
Kind of semantics. I love.
No, I understand. I agree. Yeah.
And a lot of collectors like tokens and metals. I love tokens and metals too, but a lot of collectors want a coin. So the government kind of knows that, and they're marketers too. And they go, oh, we'll put a denomination. It's a coin.
Right. Well, coins are representative of some sort of monetary system. Maybe it's not dollars or in US, but yeah.
Right.
I was thinking that when you mentioned the gold coin that, in those days, I don't know what they used them for, if they put them in machines or, how they used the money. But I think as time went on, you had like vending machines and things like that. If you had too, rich of a design, it wouldn't work.
Right.
They got to fit in these slots and stuff.
Yeah. There's issues with, when they came out with the Buffalo nickel, which is a famous American coin design, there were issues with that because the relief was a little too high compared to the prior Liberty Head nickel. And they had to kind of rework the design at that time. And there were business interests lobbying against this new coin because it wasn't, they didn't want to have to, reconfigure their machines, put a nickel in the Nickelodeon. They had,
you don't think about that stuff,
and it happened again in more recent times because when they changed the dollar coin, when I was a kid, they had the Susan B. Anthony came out, which was,
I remember. Yep. I have some of those.
unpopular because it was too similar to a quarter.
Yeah.
But they were still used in vending machines. And then when they changed to the newer coins, the Sacagawea and the Native American dollars that are used now, and the presidential dollars that are used now, they're made of manganese, which is that gold color. They call it the golden dollar.
Right. It makes it look gold. Right.
It's a gold color, but it's manganese. But there was a long time before they switched to that new metal content, because there were all this testing, because they needed to work in vending. As much as we don't think about dollar coins very much, you don't really use them much in change. They are used a lot in vending. You go to New York to get your Metro card, and
and dollars come out.
You get those dollar coins out. So they are needed in vending still. So there was a lot of thought kind of put into when they made those new coins.
Yeah. When did they change? Not that the penny's worth a penny anymore, but probably cost them more to make the penny than it's actually used in monetary systems. Why did they get rid of the wheat symbol and switch over to what's on the back?
Lincoln Memorial.
Is it the Lincoln Memorial?
Oh, well, now it's changed again, but in 1959, they changed over to the Lincoln Memorial. That was the 50th year of the Lincoln cent. And that was the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Because Lincoln was born in 1809, so that's why they started the penny in 1909.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in 2009, they did a series where they had 4 different reverses representing the stages of Lincoln's life. And then from then on, they've changed it. If you look now, there's a shield on the reverse.
Okay.
Which was designed.
I don't think I have too many pennies anymore.
You don't even look at them. Most people don't look at them.
Doesn't it cost the mint more than a penny to make a penny?
It does cost.
That's absurd. Why do we have a penny then? Just get rid of it.
Every time they try and do, people freak out.
People freak out.
Can't get rid of it. I mean, other countries don't do it, or there's no paper dollars in most countries, or euros. Like they all go to use a coin.
Right.
It costs the government more than a penny to make a penny. It costs more than a nickel to make a nickel. They make money on the dimes and the quarters, but coins last in circulation about 30 years, but paper money lasts about 18 months. So a dollar wears out, and they have to replace it every 18 months. Where if they could get us using dollar coins, they would.
Long time.
Right. So it costs the government money to do this. But every time they propose to get rid of the dollar bill, people go nuts and say, "Oh, we're going to be walking around with our pockets,
all this heavy stuff in our
heavy stuff." But I go, you're not going to have more than like 4. Then you get a $5 bill.
Use a debit card, right? Exactly.
And exactly. Now
everything's electronic. Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Now, it is. If you go back, I remember this is way before you and I were born, but there used to be a smaller denomination than the penny, and they got rid of that.
Yes, there was a half cent. And that was used because when the mint started operating, so the first kind of U.S. mint coins, there's a little kind of gray area. At 1792, they struck some coins before the mint building was constructed, kind of in a guy's basement in Philadelphia. Okay. And then 1793, the mint is officially open, and they start making half cents because you could buy 2 loaves of bread for a penny back in 1793. So half cent was a denomination that they used until 1857.
Right.
And then they said other weird denominations. They had a 2-cent piece that was in the 1860s and early 1870s. They had 3-cent pieces, which were popular at the time because a stamp, a regular postal first-class stamp, was 3 cents. So that was used for that. And then in the Civil War era, they actually had fractional currency, because people were hoarding their coins during the Civil War. And it's kind of like in COVID times, the money isn't coins aren't circulating. So the government actually printed what they call fractional currency. So there's paper money that was like 5 cents, 25 cents, 3 cents for a little while there too.
Right. Well, that affects the collectability of stuff, right? I mean, over time, if it changes, and then the old ones, there's less of them, and it affects the whole business.
Right. People get interested in it. Certain ones become rare, whether it's because they just didn't make a lot, or sometimes because a lot of them don't survive.
Right.
So that, there's, we talk about absolute rarity, meaning something's rare no matter what, just because, like I said, like the most expensive coin, there's a 1933 $20 double eagle sold for almost $20 million last year.
Really?
Yeah. But
why?
Well, they made about 450,000 of them. And then during the Depression, Franklin Roosevelt tells us we're no longer using gold coins. He's trying to get the economy jump started. So people are afraid, that paper money could, there could be inflation or something.
Yeah.
So people are kind of hoarding their gold coins and spending their paper money. So he signs this executive order that says you have to turn in your gold. So now it's supposed to get people spending paper money again. It also, because now the government has all this gold in their vaults, they're now authorized to print more paper money off of it. So, but this happened in 1933, and the government struck about 450,000 $20 gold pieces, but they never got released because then this order comes into place. They melt them all down. Right. So they melt them all down, but there was a small amount that somehow got out. And over the years, the Secret Service, like these would come up in auction or for sale, or they'd find out somebody had it in their collection. The Secret Service would actually come and take your coin, and they would take it and melt it. They said, this is our property. This is never was supposed to leave.
Oh, so none of it was supposed to be released. Somehow got leaked out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's an example of a coin where they made a decent amount of them, but they all got melted and they don't survive. So you'll find, we call absolute rarity is where a coin's rare no matter what. Then there's also what we call condition rarity, where it's rare and high grade. So maybe a lot of them exist, but most of them got used.
Yeah.
So to find one that wasn't used is a big deal. Now,
is there a difference with the collector of somebody who collects like foreign currency and foreign coins versus American coins? It all mixed. I remember in the stamp business, the stamp world, it used to be like you could get like a U.S. stamp book and all these U.S. stamps, or you could get a world book and they would have stuff from around the world. Is it the same kind of thing, or you don't see that as much?
You do. I mean, we're based in the United States, so most of our clients are collecting U.S. We deal in a little bit of world coins. I think most people are interested in their own country, but a lot of people like to collect foreign coins because of their design or because of their ancestry or because of the history.
Right.
One of the cool things about collecting coins or collecting anything is, you can collect as many ways as there are collectors,
Right.
You can collect
whatever you want, right?
I like, for myself, I try not to compete with my clients, so I love these weird, like Irish tokens, like that are like, like a guy in Dublin in the 1840s advertising his hat shop,
on a coin.
Yeah. You could spend it in his store, but it's a privately issued, it was
like a gift coin from his store.
Well, they would use these, some businesses, and this happened in the Civil War because there was a lack of official money. So private issuers would issue coins, and you have to remember, coins originally, their purpose was they were trading at their metal content, even a copper coin. So paper money is more kind of like an IOU. Right. Money, the history of money, it goes back to ancient times where we're on a barter system. You want to trade this piece of silver you found for my goats.
Right. They're going to weigh the silver and they're going to say there's so many ounces, and it's the word. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. So the idea, the concept of a coin was a pain in the neck. You got to test the metal. You got to weigh the metal. Somebody got the idea about 600 or 700 BC. Well, why don't I test it and weigh it? Why don't I stamp it with this mark so I know exactly what it is? I don't got to go through the whole rigmarole next time. I look at it, I go, oh, I know that's, an ounce of silver or whatever. It would have been a smaller amount, but so that's the concept of a coin. It's basically, we know how much metal is here. So even up to more recent times, really up to 1933, we stopped using gold. In 1964, we stopped using silver. You're trading really based on the amount of metal was there. And, in the US up until the mid 19th century, they were still using coins from all different countries. They were using coins struck in, French coins, English coins, privately made coins that, so there were businesses that sometimes would make their own coins, and, you could spend them in their shop, but you could also, it's also advertising for them.
Right. I got it. But now,
wouldn't you love to have the accidental entrepreneur logo on the back of a quarter, and somebody's in the store and they, they're seeing your advertising?
I probably could do that. I could have it, not a real coin, but I could actually have some sort of a token made right on the internet.
Right.
Find some company.
Right, but you couldn't spend it today. I guess what I'm saying back then, it actually could be used as money.
Right. I mean, now it's really just representative of purchasing power, right? So it's backed by the government of the United States. Right. They're going to treat it as 25 cents. Regardless of what metal it's made of.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I remember we were talking before about the state quarters as they came out, and we were collecting them and stuff. Is there anything that's out there now that's being collected and issued it for some reason? It's some sort of a series, anything?
Yeah. So now they're doing, a series on important women. Like there was just a Maya Angelou quarter that came out. So when the state quarters ended, it was such a huge success. They were like, well, how do we continue? Then they did America the Beautiful. So they did all the state parks.
Okay.
And now they've just started this year, this new series on women, important American women in history. And like I said, the Maya Angelou one just came out. I forget who else is coming out this year, but that'll be an ongoing series for the next several years too.
I'll keep my
and again, it goes back to collecting. Kids learn about history. It's a great way for kids to learn about these important people.
I think it's becoming harder, right? Because when I was collecting the state coins, you're spending money and you're getting change and whatever. I don't see change that often anymore. And my kids don't see it. They have a debit card and they use Venmo, and they, Dad, certainly my kids at college forget about it. They don't see, and you don't see this stuff. I remember when the parks ones came out. How many parks were there? How many parks are there?
50. I think they did for every state.
There's a park, some sort of a park in every state. Okay. Yeah. I definitely didn't see more than a half a dozen or a dozen of them, because I don't see enough coins. I used to have this. Did you grow up when you used to have one of those big water bottles and you just throw the change in there and then you couldn't carry it and you realize, what the hell did I do? And you got to get it out of there. I have a little jar in my bedroom. It takes a year and a half to fill up now. It used to fill up all the time. Now I can't find anywhere to count it, by the way, but there's machines I know at some of the supermarkets and stuff. During pandemic, I had all these coins and I was like, well, I'm going to get rid of these now. Every machine I went to either wasn't emptied because there was nobody working, or it was full, or it was out of order.
Right.
So that becomes more difficult. But yeah, I remember that I didn't see those because I just wasn't getting a coin. So I would think that for the kids, it's got to be tougher now for them to collect, unless they specifically go to a store and say, I want 4 quarters, or go to a bank, and try and collect them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a little harder, I guess, but it's not too hard to start. I mean, people do get changed, like you said, to less of a degree, but it's out there if you spend cash.
Yeah, if you do it right, if you're conscious of it.
Another thing that, we did when I was a kid, when we're starting, we'd go to the bank and get rolls. If I'm trying to fill my quarter book, you get your mom to take you to the bank with
like baseball card pack. You open it up and you see what you got.
Right. You go through and if you found a silver one, it was like the jackpot, 1964 or earlier, the coin still had silver.
There's silver.
Or just looking for those state quarters, trying to fill those holes in the state quarter album. So
I have an old Susan B. Anthony from like 1923. So that's silver.
Well, that wouldn't be Susan B. Anthony. That'd be a peace dollar. But yeah, that's silver. If it's 1923, Susan B. Anthony is a little one from 1999.
This was a big one.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's a peace dollar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's silver. That's silver.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I got it somewhere in the house. My great grandfather gave it to me.
Yeah. And everybody seems to have a few like coins that they got from a grandfather or an uncle or somebody.
Yeah.
Well,
because it's like stamps, I guess. If you're not into stamps, you don't know. You don't throw out coins. It's money.
Right. Exactly.
I would assume that you could still spend that money as at its denomination if you wanted to. I mean, if the guy says, okay, gives you 25, if he's not an idiot, he then goes to your store and sells it for some real money, but its denomination is still acceptable.
Yeah. The US is, I believe, well, maybe not the only, but the US is one of the few countries that has never demonetized any of our old coins or money. So you can spend, when the European countries went to the euro, you had a certain amount of time to turn in, I don't know,
countries,
French
whatever,
20 franc or franc or something.
Or else it's no good.
yeah, now like you have those old coins because people would come in when I worked in the store and they'd have coins from vacation and, they're like, well, what's this worth? And I'm like, well, it's basically by the pound. Like people would buy and sell it by the pound. And they're like, well, can't I go redeem it? I'm like, these coins aren't used anywhere anymore, or the paper money is not used. If it's still used, you could go to an exchange bank, they'll exchange the paper money, but they don't want the coins. But the other coins, they're not even used anymore. US never did that. US, you can use anything. It's still, like I said, wouldn't recommend it. Some of them are worth more. And even coins that are not rare per se, they're still worth the silver. If you're, you have an old silver dollar from like 1923, like the one you have, if it's worn out, it might not have a lot of value as a collectible because they made a lot of them. And it probably, if it's worn out and not in super high grade, but at the very least, you've got, more than 3/4 of an ounce of silver there. So there's, so there's value there. Like,
exactly. No, it's not in good shape. It's worn. It's definitely worn, but I guess it's worth more than $1. So
much more than $1. Yeah. And, that's the thing. I'm such a nerd. I see these coins that, I get excited about these $1 million things that should be in the Smithsonian and like I've never imagined I'd see, but I get just as excited. I have friends like you that and they have a cigar box or a baggie or something with these coins, and everybody wants it. What's it worth? And I'm
hey, Jack's coming over. Get out your
I usually have to kind of try and gently tell them it's not worth a ton. They're not going to retire, but I'm all excited about. I'm like, oh, look at this. This is from they made this because of World War II. What's it worth? 5 cents? Like, oh,
right. Right. But it's nostalgic, right?
It's nostalgic and it's the history of it. And like, just imagining like, who held this and what was going on at the time. I don't know. I guess it just gets my imagination running a little bit.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you coming on because I know it's probably the middle of the day there. It's 4:30 here, and talking to me and teaching people about, they should check out rarecollectiblestv.com. We'll put all your links in the show notes and, learn about the world of coin collecting, your passion. And I appreciate you spending the time with me.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Coins and militaria and movie posters now too. So expanding into all kinds of collectibles.
Sounds good. Check them out online.
Great. Thanks, Mitch. Really appreciate it.
If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Amazon Music, and many of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com. The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted and produced by me, Mitch Beinhacker. If you'd like more information about my legal services, you can find me on social media or visit my website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.